Hi, it's Stephen Gandolfi coming to you once again from the tasting room here at Westport Whiskey and Wine. And I'm feeling very liberated this week, and we're going to be talking about some barrel proof bourbons. But before we get to that, let's talk about this week's events. On Tuesday night, our former employee slash manager, fellow Seth, is going to be here pouring some wines from Tremonti and Sons from Guardian Cellars. Not a portfolio I am familiar with, but supposedly a lot of sort of French oak and barrel chemistry sort of thing going on there. So it should be a pretty compelling tasting. Thursday night, yours truly will be back here for bar night, and we'll be doing Riesling Renaissance. We'll have a flight of different Rieslings, try to get across the idea that Rieslings these days are more than just the kind of classic sweet profile that people are sort of familiar with, and that they're actually a great pairing agent for most foods, and they're very lean and vibrant, and the perfect thing to sort of break you out of that Sauvignon Blanc rut a lot of people get into. Friday night, Bell's will be here for our beer tasting, and that'll be great. So, I mean, who doesn't love two-hearted ale? So come on down and show Bell's some love. But on to this week's flight. As after stated, it is barrel proof bourbons. For the most part, these are all fairly difficult to get a hold of as well. So this is, I think, a pretty interesting flight. We'll be starting here at 104.5, 108.5, 109.5, my favorite FM station. We're starting here at 109.5, Peerless's bourbon. This is the second batch. If you haven't managed to get a hold of the bottles, they're definitely worth trying. I think their MSRP is about $70. It's earthy, it's woody. There is some subtle medicinal notes in there. There's definitely a little bit of rye at play as well, but certainly a compelling whiskey. And it is at a full 4 years. So whereas their rye is still kind of plugging along, just reaching 3 earlier this year, and will be 4 next year, their bourbon is a straight 4 years old and developing nicely. Next, Larceny Barrel Proof. I like Larceny. And I've already featured Larceny in a flight earlier this year, but Larceny Barrel Proof has always been a little price prohibitive for me. That being said, I think it's a stellar whiskey. It's everything you think about in Larceny, all of those classic kind of cherry and spice notes just cranked up to 11, big rich mouthfeel, and trying it again in context within a flight for a lesser amount than you would normally even, splurging on a bottle is definitely the way to approach this whiskey. And I think it actually makes a nice jump from the kind of earthiness of Peerless to the kind of sweeter coffee, almost like Vietnamese coffee, sugary coffee kind of characteristics of Old Ezra, which again has some spice, it has some sweet, it has some kind of like coffee sort of notes. And that proof, 117, really just, it comes in guns blazing. And it's just a delicious bourbon. We'll move to what was last year one of my favorites, Woodford Batch Proof. Now this is this year's. The proof is different. This year's 123.3. I think last year was 132. I could be wrong. But as somebody who has a sort of love-hate relationship with Woodford, it's ubiquitous. Everybody has it. Everybody, every bar has it, and it's a good stalwart standby. But it's not something I reach for very often. Being able to try it at cask strength, I think, is a interesting reason to seek out this bourbon. It really gives you a sense of what's happening in the barrel over at Woodford. Of course, they're heat cycling their warehouses because they're an arm of Brown Forman, and that's evident here in these sort of rich, woody, subtle, warm notes that come across and really give some body to what's classically a kind of like relaxed, easy sipping bourbon. But this flight would normally be $38. This week we'll do it for $30. I've been doing some inexpensive flights, and I told you I would do an expensive one. But I think this is absolutely worth the money, and you should come on down and try some barrel proof bourbons.